Dude, I feel like this year is gonna go by super fast.
Yeah, we're already a month in. It's I was just looking at the calendar, and the Carpet Nationals is in like 2.5 months. Like, whew,
Oh, what's going on,
crazy.
everybody? Thanks for tuning in. We're live now, I believe. We haven't done this in a while. I thought I'd kick it back up. Maybe with the once a month TLR race talk. This week, we got Dakotah Phend joining us, the one and only Phenom. Man, so I kind of we'll just do some general chat and conversation before we get into this, and I'm gonna just say hi to everybody. Let's see if that actually if this is actually working.
We gotta remember how to do it. We were just talking. It's been a while. I kind of forgot how to do this.
Yeah, it's definitely been a minute, and we were just talking about the race calendar, how things are gonna just ramp up here really fast. We got DNC like a couple of weeks away. It just
Yep.
feels like
Yeah.
we just. I mean, I feel like it's 2 to 3 months away still, but it's 2 to 3, and it's like 3 weeks, less than a month
Hmm.
before we got DNC, which is probably the I would say the major kickoff race of the year for 8 scale,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
For
SIC
some,
was kind of like see where everyone's at, kind of
yeah,
a good warm up, and it's a great race, and a lot of fun. But yeah, it's kind of everyone gets to see where they're at with the new equipment, or just with a fresh year and month off or so. And yeah, it's kind of gives everyone a good indication where they're at, what they need to do to prepare for DNC. And that's one of the major races that you want to try to come out swinging at.
yeah, we'll talk about the sick race, how that kind of is a unique race. Like you said, it's kind of everybody getting used to their gear.
Yeah.
For the guys that switch teams and sponsorships, it's like new tires. Okay, how do these drive around the track? New car.
Hmm.
Like, okay, what are some of the things I got to watch out for, or how do I tune this thing? So it's always kind of an interesting race at the SIC, just because it's got that mix in there, that flavor. But I kind of wanted to talk about let's just talk before we jump into this year. Let's talk about last year and just recap what your thoughts were for 2022. I mean, obviously, a phenomenal year. I hate to use that word in relation to you, but it's a phenomenal year. And I don't know, where does 2022 rank amongst your racing seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely was one of probably my most successful year to date. It started off pretty decent, and then just really everything started clicking, um, and had some pretty solid results. There's obviously some results I wish that I could have changed, but yeah, we had an overall really good year, and nationals was obviously the highlight of that, being able to get those wins, and then check Nitro Buggy out the list for a national championship, and
Yeah.
really just kind of the whole program was working really well, and was able to just take advantage of that and capitalize on it, and just kind of keep it rolling for most of the year. And then yeah, had a little bit of a time off at the end of the year, and then we kind of rolled right into a January really quick. Went by fast, and then yeah, we've had a couple races, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with last year, and it's always hard for whatever reason to start the next year, and kind of get back into that flow. So that was really kind of my goal going into it, was just to try to keep that momentum going, and take the time off, enjoy the time with the family and stuff in December, and then get back into racing hardcore, and try to be as successful as we can, and continue on. And yeah, I think last year, a lot of, like I said, a lot of the success was just due to just the overall program. Everything's clicking. We're not having any issues. We have really, really good base setups, solid setups for all the cars that we can go to these events, and make a few tweaks here and there, and the car's good to go. And I can just concentrate on driving, getting comfortable. And I think for myself, I've really learned, when Sunday comes around, how to kind of step up to the plate and make it happen. I think I've learned how to manage the nitro races a little bit better, and even the 10 scale ones as well. Just managing the race and knowing when to take risks, when to kind of back off, and just be content with where you're at, and just avoid those big crashes and getting in the hole, especially in the beginning of the 8 skill races. You just kind of gotta hang in there, and you don't have to be leading or lighting the world on fire, but if you can just stay close in that front group and just be within a few seconds of the lead, and just get to that first pit stop, things start to really open up and happen really quick after that first pit stop. So I've learned that. I think I've gotten better at it. I'm always growing, always trying to get better, but I definitely took a big step forward, it seemed like last year.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to comment on was that I think working with you for the almost 3 years now, and first year was something, second year was something different, third year this is a little bit different too. So I remember kind of coming on at the very beginning and working with you early on, and it was like, man, this guy still can improve so much in his program. And at that time, you were already like super fast. You know, you already had your national champions, your wins, the nickname phenom, like all those things were already there. And then when I got to TLR, I was watching you race and practice and go through your race weekend. And every time I was like, man, he's so good, but like they're like he can still improve, and that's going to be dangerous when he actually hits his full potential and is able to kind of hit that next level. And when you do, I felt like if you figured it out, these guys are really going to be in for some trouble, because you're going to be even harder to beat. And I think you kind of what you just touched upon, about figuring out your race weekend, managing your race, and not having to go flat out the whole time, and being able to just pick and choose more decisively on when you kind of use all your speed. But as long as you're in the hunt in that group, you can kind of manage the rest. And I think you've kind of learned how to do that pretty well now. We're starting to see like that full potential, I think, between not just you mastering your speed, but also mastering your consistency and your racecraft throughout the race. And like sometimes you're up there for an hour trying to manage this race, like at Worlds. So it's just pretty crazy, pretty nuts. So yeah, I think you found that gear. I don't know what it's like, what exactly it is, but it's just something more mentally than actually
Mhm.
about like technique or speed or setup. It was just kind of how you approach the race weekend, and it's much different, I think, than how you did it in the past.
Yeah, and I don't think like my driving. I mean, my driving style for sure has changed a little bit over the years, and or even just the last couple of years even. But it's really not anything like that, or going slower. But yeah, just the mental aspect of it, just kind of taking that next step and figuring that out. And like I said, just having the ability to manage everything, and just it's just a lot of little things, and it all adds up. Making sure that your engine's tuned right, your fuel mileage, for 8 scale, being confident in what tread pattern or compound you pick, making sure the car is good to go. You're not going to have any issues with that. Just being comfortable in general. On the 10 scale side of things, just, speedo settings and trying different rotors, and just kind of getting all that figured out and sorted out when you go to the race. I feel like last year we'd be able to go to a race and just be like, we need to make these 3 changes, and you make those 3 changes, go out there and you drive, and you're pretty close, pretty spot on. So it's just being able to make those decisions and have that confidence to do that, and know, like, we're not having to go through and make a little change here and there all the time, which until you get to a certain point is kind of how you want to do it. But yeah, we've been able to figure out how to make those combination of changes, and
Yeah.
just get it done, and go out there and then just drive then, and not be messing around with the car in qualifying and mains and
Yeah.
stuff.
I was talking to Aaron Kaufman a little bit, and we're trying to figure out how to kind of get him to that next level too. And I've been doing a lot of deep thinking and trying to figure out how to, like, what differentiates people from being able to be in the A main, or first of all being in the A main, and then the next step is being a factor in the A main, and then the final step is winning the races in the A main. So like there's a couple stages that you kind of have to go through. It doesn't really randomly work out where you just start winning races off the bat, and that's pretty rare to come out swinging and winning. And but it's usually kind of done in stages. And so we're trying to get, to that podium step and how to get to be a factor. And one of the things that I've kind of analyzed with Aaron is how to kind of mentally prepare. I think a lot of people, this is one of the things that people don't know about Dakotah unless you work with him and you have a race weekend with him and you go through the experiences that I feel like there's something that the way you approach a race weekend is much different from how everybody else does it. Everybody else sets these goals. And then your goal is obviously to go out and win, but that's kind of already built into your DNA now at this point where like if you show up to a race, your goal is to not take third or something. You know what I mean? Your goal is to win. So everybody else is also that same goal, but it's much harder for them to achieve. So how do you go about achieving this? And it's like people, when I look at people, their goals are set in terms of a finishing position. So like I might ask somebody, hey, what's your goal for this race? Oh, I'm gonna try to make the A main. I'm gonna try to be top 5. I'm gonna try to be on the podium at third. And sometimes when you structure a weekend with a result as your end goal, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. So the moment it doesn't go and work out, like the moment you're seated in the B main, right? That's like, oh crap, like this is like I don't have the speed that I think I should have. And so then your weekend kind of goes into this tailspin of how do you kind of make up this pace to be at this number, this finishing position that you're trying to get and achieve so that you can say, I achieved my goal. I had a great weekend. I finished 5th, right? Or something like that. But when you don't achieve these goals, I feel like people kind of have these frustration moments. They have, they're emotional. They're on this roller coaster on their performance. If they have a good run, they're like super good. My car's dialed. The group weekend's great. I love RC, And then like the moment they have a bad run, it's like this stuff sucks, man. This sucks, that sucks. Everything sucks. It's usually never them. That I come to find out, it's never them able to point their finger on themselves and say, oh, my car is good. I just made 2 crashes and that's why I'm like 20th. If I had no crashes, I should be about 7th. That's where I should be, but I need to clean it up. It's usually really that. So I actually told Aaron, it's like, hey, maybe approach the race weekend differently. And it's kind of similar to how you approach it, I think, is where you're not ever really looking for a perfect car. You're not ever really looking for a magical lap time or those are kind of gauges for you. You're not really looking for like a top, like I'm trying to TQ this run. You're not really saying that. Your approach is more like, hey, I got this car, I got these tires, I got myself. I'm going to go out on this track. I'm going to go see what I can do, manage my race, and then see what I can get, doing the best job I can with this car at this track at a certain time. So I think your approach is so much more different and open that you're willing to take a bad car and turn that bad car into a good run, And I think a lot of people, they get a bad car and they can't mentally get past that and be like, okay, my car's not perfect, but I got to drive, perform, and do the best I can with this car in this 5 minutes or whatever you're running. And it's like, and I don't see a lot of people taking that approach. I see a lot of people, they get a bad car, they get emotional, they're yelling on the driver's stand, and they're kind of losing control. So like I feel like when you have a number set out, you have so much pressure, you're driving a lot different. Whereas I feel like you don't really drive with that same kind of pressure. You have the confidence, you go out there, you drive, and you try to maximize the car on that track. And I think over the last couple of years, you've been really good at figuring out how to maximize the car on the track, and it's getting better.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we've talked about it before. I've gone out there and had a really good run. And you ask how the car is, and I go, well, the car is awesome. I'm like, but I could see if I crash, that I would start crashing a lot more and get in my rhythm, and then it wouldn't be so great. And that, like you said, that's a lot of it is that mental side of things, and just kind of having that balance and that I don't know, just adaptability and being comfortable, just driving your car how it is.
Yeah.
A lot of time, that's why I don't change my car a ton, just because I am comfortable with it, And I put a lot of stock in having that comfort and knowing exactly what the car is going to do, instead of trying to get that perfect setup, that magical setup. That's not to say that I don't change things,
Yeah.
but you have to, which this is very hard to do, but you have to find that balance and know when your car is good enough, and
Yeah.
that the comfort and drivability and just being used to it is going to make a bigger impact than trying to find that one more tenth on the setup. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but that's how I go about it. I get my car pretty good. I have that base setup. I'll make a couple small changes if I need to, and then I just drive the car, manage it, and get the best result that I can. And I've done this before. Where I'll go to the track, and I may want my car to do this or do that. And actually, I did this with Tater last year too. We went to the track, and you'd be like, "Hey, my car is doing this." Um, Say like, "Hey, it's pushing mid to exit." I get in the gas and it wants to bleed out too far, and I was like, "Okay," well, I said, "Well, try giving it less gas, or try waiting 1/10 of a second longer before you get in the
Mm-hmm.
gas." I'm just saying, look, now the car stays tighter, the corner doesn't bleed out as much because you gave it that little bit extra time, just that millisecond of time to be able to rotate a little bit more, and then you can hit the line that you want. And that's something when you go back to the pit, you can work on and try to make that change. But when you're out there racing or practicing or whatever it may be, the car you're driving is the car you have. So just making
Yeah.
those small little adjustments to try to get the car to behave how you want to do, and actually changing how you drive a little bit, adapting to the car, and then going from there. Because like I said, when you're on the track, the car can't change, but you do have the ability to. So just keeping
Yeah.
that in mind and practicing that.
Yeah, so that's exactly it, man. The car can't change, right? I mean, you got what you got. So now your job is to, okay, if it's good, that's awesome. If it's bad, it's your job to kind of manage and figure out how to get this car around the track the best you can and deliver a solid run, and then go back and talk to your boys and see what you can do to make changes, for the next run to improve some of the car's flaws, right? So people get really wrapped. I see a lot of people get really wrapped up in their run, and then they tell me this is undrivable. This is terrible. The track totally changed and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it changed, but that's your job. Your job is to actually adapt and change and learn what the track's doing, and be able to kind of maximize what you got, what the car has, and be able to deliver a pretty, solid run. So I know there's a lot of frustrations, but there's a good question in the comment section right now. So what's the best way to know if it's the car or if it's yourself? So this is one of the things when you say, you're talking about motors and
Mm-hmm.
rotors and ESC power. It's like, how do you know, for somebody out there, how do you know this is the right power setting? Like, hey, like you test all the settings, it feels great. And then you go through and you're like, and you have races like that, and you hand your car over to somebody, and they tell you, they drive it, and they're like, dude, how do you drive this thing? It's like, whoa, what's up? And you're like, you tuned it and you thought it was
Yeah.
right. Hey, so go ahead, Dakotah, go ahead and answer this question. I'm going to flop my headphones. It seems like these ones are running out of batteries.
All right.
So
Sounds good.
so
Yeah.
don't,
So
yeah,
all right. Well, I'll keep him busy on here.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, and it's not crazy simple to answer. But I would say probably the most important thing is just realizing if you're comfortable or uncomfortable with your car. So if you're uncomfortable with your car, let's say the speedo settings. If you're uncomfortable, you don't know if you're going to be over jumping the jump or under jumping the jump, and you're kind of just uncomfortable everywhere on the track, then okay, that's a good time to change the speedo settings. If you're going everywhere around the track and you're just having one jump where you aren't timing it correctly, if you're not thinking like, man, on the rest of the track, I don't know how much gas to give it. I don't know how much gas to give in this corner. If you're comfortable everywhere else on the track, but you're struggling in the one area, then that could be a good sign that it might be you and that you need to adjust how you're driving a little bit, how you're giving the throttle, and try some different things out there. If you're trying to drive a little bit different, trying to time it different ways and it's not working, then okay, maybe then you need to change the power band a little bit. As far as car setup goes and stuff as well. Another thing is, like I said, if you're very uncomfortable with the car, then that's something to change. If you're looking for the car to do something very specifically different, Let's say, so a change I made at Hoosier on my 4-wheel drive is I felt like it was sitting on the rear a lot. It wasn't necessarily doing anything bad, but it was sitting on the rear more than I wanted it to. So my goal was there. Okay, let's get it to drive a little bit flatter, not transfer so much weight to the rear. So I added a little bit more anti-squat, and I was more comfortable with the car. I wasn't going out there, okay, I need to go faster, so I'm going to make this change. It was more just a comfort thing. If I make the car comfortable for me, I know that I'm going to be able to do the best lap times that I can. And that's how I look at it. Obviously there is still something to be said about speed. Sometimes you go out there and you're comfortable with your car and it is just slow. But I feel like most of the time, if you are comfortable with your car and you have a good base setup, then you're probably going to be pretty close speed wise to where you're at. If you're coming off of one track, with 10 scale, we're running slicks everywhere. So if you're coming off of a medium bite track where you did good, and you go to another track that's medium bite, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit less, but it's medium bite, and you're not doing very good, the car is probably pretty close setup wise. Like I said, we're running slicks at most of these tracks, and if it's similar grip, and you're not doing so good this new track, if you're not like super uncomfortable with the car, then it's probably you, and you need to figure out how you can adjust your driving, tighten up the lines, or just kind of figure out what you need to do differently. You can help that by watching other people go on the track. Maybe they're doing different lines, taking corners tighter or rounding them off. Just kind of watching other people go on the track and see if you're missing some lines, you're missing something on the layout that will make your life a little bit easier. So that's how I look at it. Like I said, I think it's a little bit of a different approach, but I've always kind of come from the other spectrum where I don't mess with my car a ton, and I've learned where, okay, I do actually need to change my car a little bit and make these small changes here and there and get the car good to go. But I never had the personality, the desire to change my car a ton and try to get it perfect. Like I said, I was always from the other end where I didn't really change anything. I just drove my car and dealt with it. So I think a little bit different. And I think that's just how, that's me personality wise, and also just kind of how I grew up racing. We didn't change a ton, and I think it was also, not that I'm crazy old, but I do think it was a little bit of a different era back when I was young. I still got thrown out there, I'm not crazy old, but I've been racing for a long time now. So if I remember the brushed nickel metal days. So to some people, I'm old.
You're pretty old if you ran brushed nickel metal. That's, that you're dating yourself pretty hardcore when you say you were part of the brushed nickel metal
I do
era.
think. I do think now that it is a little bit different, and it is very hard to really make a huge difference in your results, just because everyone's program is really good. Everyone's driving is really good.
We talked about this where, like, the only differentiator now, the cars are all good, tires are all good, bodies are looking similar. They got a matching competitive piece. Everybody's stuff driving, everybody's got tons of years on tracks now. Their driving level is good. They can practice anytime, and everybody's got the access. So like, what really differentiates? What's the advantage out there now? It really comes down to setup. I mean, like, the car setup. How good is your car versus the next guy? And these fine points are really what separates now. That those tenths really matter more now than ever, I think.
Setup, and then just the mental side of things, and it's just, I mean, you see it with a lot of sports, but it's just gotten to the level where you can't go out there with an unmaintained car.
You can't just show up anymore.
You can't just. It's very hard to just show up and not really have any prep or have anything going on beforehand.
Yeah, somebody's put in more time. Somebody's put in figured out some setup. Somebody's figured out some tire tricks. So there's always something that somebody's figured out that always seems to kind of push the envelope. And you can't really just come off the couch, get warmed up in practice, get slaying in qualifying, and then go win the mains. That doesn't really exist anymore. You got, like, everybody is so good, the level's so high that you can't just breeze through a weekend, man. Like, you try to do that these days, you're not even gonna make the A main. It's so close.
Yeah, and with the card and everything, you don't have to, I'm not tearing my card down, taking every screw out every time, but if you have a well maintenance car that you take care of,
Yep.
you come back from Hoosier, when I head to SDRC, I'll for the INS, I'll make sure that the ball cups are tight and that, no plastics are worn out or anything like that. And, throw a new diff in, make sure all the bearings are good to go and, um, you know, empty the oil out of the shocks, see if you need to change the O-rings and, go from there. You're not having to put, 8 hours into a car or completely rebuild it from the ground up, but just when you get there, just
Yeah.
having the car good, having it ready to go, having a couple sets of tires ready to go, and not be thrashing around, and it just makes your life easier when you show up to the race.
Yeah, Teddy Page, he makes a great comment right here. It says, once you get to a certain level in RC, your success, life outside RC has a huge impact on your on-track performance, at least for me. It did. Positive mental attitude is the single biggest speed secret. So this is something that we don't, no racers really talk about. We don't really sit around and talk about your mental space. I mean, this is still, even in the pro athlete and the, pro sports world, they don't really talk about this in most cases. Having that freshness, being mentally prepared, being well balanced, not having a lot of stress on your shoulders, not dealing with a bunch of unforeseen circumstances and things like that. I think this really actually has what Teddy says has more merit than we give it credit, and for what we actually talk about. It's something that I feel is very important to people's racing ability. Like, you have a certain potential, but if on that race day you're dealing and you're not happy, you have a lot of emotional stress or personal life things going on, it's really gonna be hard to try to muster out the best driving and the most focus that you can get out of yourself if you have some of those other things, or if you're unhappy in your life or depressed, or just those mental things. You can get some mental blocks going on, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It's, we talk about RC having the whole package, and that's having the whole package from a mental standpoint and from a well-being standpoint. And yeah, it makes a big difference. That's why I think we put so much effort and so much stock into having a good atmosphere in the pits. Is, if you're having a good time, you're enjoying yourself, that normally the racing is going to go better, or at least you can have the ability to come back and have a better weekend than if you're miserable. Yeah, if you're going out there upset or you're showing up to the race upset, then it's most likely going to affect how you drive as well. And when you're out there racing, just having that really really clear mental image and not being distracted by anything or emotions is really important. So yeah, I 100% I think your life has a big impact on it. What you're doing outside of RC, what you're doing inside of RC, who you're surrounding yourselves with, it all adds up and makes a difference.
Yeah, who you surround yourself with. I'm pretty. This is a pretty key one, I think. I've been telling some of my guys who are starting to see some success, get faster, improve, and I've been telling some of my guys, and this is right or wrong, but like I tell them, hey, everybody wants to be a part of your success, but you can't listen to everybody. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
because once you start to win races, you get noticed, people want to help, and it's just natural, right? Like, and then they genuinely want to help you, and and it's a great thing, it's a positive thing, but you can't take everybody's advice or help always so seriously, or include everybody. It's very hard to, because certain people and certain groups or certain whatever, they instead of bringing you up, they kind of are a distraction sometimes, right? And then you have to kind of eliminate distractions if you really want to be at your highest level, at your best. And some of that distraction or drama, for instance, it can be very dramatic, and it could be something that impacts the whole race team over the weekend or for a while. So it's very important for me. I've always tried to make sure I'm not. I mean, so I always tell people this, like, people ask me, what do you do as a team manager? What's your job? Blah, blah, blah. And, do you help these guys? Like, I'm like, well, let's just say I do help these guys, but I'm not there, like, helping them how to drive. You know, I can't. These guys drive better, way better than I do. As it would be like me trying to teach Mozart how to do music. You know, I
Yeah.
can't do any of that. Like, you guys are all like geniuses at your craft, and I know obviously RC racing, but I don't know the driving to your guys' level. So I can't really be out there. Hey, you're taking this turn wide. You already know that you're
Yeah.
taking this turn
Yeah.
wide. You know, you already know that all this stuff that I'm going to point out that I feel like there's some times where I'm like, hey, this person is going through here with a little bit more speed, and then they kind of check up, and I can kind of tell you differences so you can kind of
Yeah, some
adjust
different lines.
adjust your line a little bit. But I'm not going to teach you how to drive. So what I do is try to provide my guys with a great atmosphere to perform at their maximum. You know, it's like you said, you touched upon it, like just having fun. You know, having a stress-free weekend. Like, I don't know, like the last time we go to a race where we've had a bad time or had a bad race. It's been a while where I'm like, dude, that was just a crappy, like, that was just a bad weekend. Everything was bad. The race was bad. Hanging out was bad. You know, didn't have fun. Everybody was fighting, bickering. Like, we really haven't had one of those weekends where we've had to like kind of have these inner team talks and be like, all right, we got to sit down, guys. Like, things are going bad and we're going in a direction that we can't like go backwards on. So like, we've always had fun. It's always been very light in the pits. It's easygoing. I kind of know what you need in terms of how do you operate, and for the other guys as well. So I kind of just make it fun, making sure you guys are food and you guys get sleep. Those three things are kind of key. And at any point, we can have distractions amongst other dudes, you know, coming, hey, come hang out, or, you know, like, all good to have fun at a race, but we're also here to kind of perform and do a job too. So we're not trying to be there till 3 or 4 in the morning, get 2 hours of sleep, and try to go qualify. You know, that if you want to win races, that's not the program.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's like I said, makes a big difference surrounding yourself with the people that you feel you need to. And yeah, we have a good time in the pits. We have a good time out at dinner, and
we have a big
we have a
group.
good weekend.
Like,
Yeah,
so we Cab used to call them Jesus tables because they would have so many people at the dinner table. You know, look like the Last Supper. So there's usually 10 plus people at our dinners. I invite anybody and everybody, as long as you're a good person and you get along with everybody and have that same respect. You know, so it doesn't matter what team you're on. Doesn't matter if you're a friend. You're a friend. Doesn't matter what shirt you wear. Lee and Hannah, they're always kind of hanging out with us, even though they're AE. We're just good close friends. I've known Lee for a long time, so it's kind of just natural for me to hang out with him. So I think it's very important to have that. And I think this collection of being a good place, having fun in the pits, and your ability to adapt and keep an open mind that doesn't allow you to close and have a specific car, or looking for a specific car, the way it drives, I think is really accumulated in your ability to have your success in the last, and then you can see it this year. We went to Clash 3 for 3, which I have a video queued up ready to watch. So we're going to watch the actual Clash race of two-wheel mod. Let's talk about that. Let me roll this up, and Dakotah, give them like what the preset of this race weekend is. Sorry, I have like a window just kind of coming in, and there's
shining in.
It's high up, and there's no curtains. I can't even close them. They're just permanent light fixtures. So and I keep scooting back, but that is
You're running out of room.
Yeah. So anyways, let's talk about the Clash, this two-wheel mod race, how it's set up, what it is, and how like what you got from it. And I'll go find the video and we can start this up.
Yeah. Are we talking about just the Dash for Cash one, or just
I think it's just so I got queued up JC's race. They got a video of the Dash for Cash, the Clash of Champions two-wheel mod buggy A. Oh, this is the A main. So I'm not sure if it's A1, A2, A3, or maybe it's the single main. This is the single Dash for Cash money race.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so this was after everything. All of racing was over. This is the last thing we did. Probably, I don't know, half an hour after racing finished. So kind of had to go back, kind of get the car ready to go, get everything charged up, the tire sauce and stuff, and get back out there. So yeah, it was an 8 minute race. I was able to start out front with just how I did in the mains earlier on, and just kind of, like I said, focus on getting a clean start, and tried to come out of the gate strong, but still not taking crazy risk, and just get that a little bit of a gap. It's so much easier to race when you have a second on someone versus if they're right on you. So try to get that first lap, and then from there you can kind of manage and yo back and forth a little bit until you get into a groove, and then really try to open up the gap. Um, but yeah, I was like I said, I just capped off an awesome weekend heading into this, and everything was feeling good, everything was flowing. So just tried to get back into that rhythm and not do anything dumb or crazy in the beginning, and then knew it was going to be a long race. Those last 3 minutes are always tough in 10 scale. 8 minutes is a long time out there. 10 minutes is a long time out there. When we do that at Masters, it's a long time in 10 scale, especially when you're running on slicks. So just try to get into a groove, and then just have the ability to kind of relax those last couple of minutes and not have to do anything too crazy.
Yeah, okay, so let's start the start of this race. You thinking just start out smooth, feel out the track? Were you thinking, all right, Spencer's gonna attack, so I gotta get going right away?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely figured he was probably gonna go for it in the beginning and try to get around me, or keep the pressure on me. So normally, like I said, I normally try to start out strong that first lap, not taking any crazy risks, but just being able to get into that rhythm right away, and just kind of be locked in, ready to go. And then once you have that little bit of a gap, like I said, it makes your life a lot easier. You're able to run your lines you want to run, opening the track up a little bit, and you're not having to worry about someone kind of sending on the inside, or making you run a little bit tighter square lines. So once you're able to do that, you can really just carry that corner speed and kind of flow around the
So
track and just try to be efficient.
this sweeper into the first turn across the loop
Mhm.
line, how difficult was that to make every lap for 8 minutes?
Yeah,
Because
it
it
wasn't
seemed
like
like it was like kind of off, like downhill, so you can lose the rear end real easy on the
yeah
braking. Like it would want to
yeah
spin out basically.
yeah it was a very like, I don't want to say awkward section. Like, it was fun, but yeah, it was definitely weird at first when you would land that double and you take the first 90-degree right before the short straight.
Yeah.
It was very weird depth perception wise for some reason. To
Yes.
know where you're at, the car really liked to bleed out towards the wall really quickly. So you kind of had to you turn initially, and then you'd have to kind of almost like double turn a little bit to keep the car from bleeding out a ton. So that
Yeah.
took a little bit to get used to and find that balance. But once I had that balance and stuff and kind of had that figured out, yeah, you had
Oh, did we lose Dakotah?
oh there we go, had to
Oh,
be
we're
really
back.
there we go. Yeah, so when you would do that first turn in the sweeper, and then you go on the short straight and get into that tight 180, right here where the loop is, right there. That was definitely a tricky corner. It was easy to get the braking point wrong.
Yeah.
So I kind of like to brake a little bit early, and then kind of roll into the corner and then brake some more. That way you're able to kind of get the
See,
maximum speed you're able to get in
so
there.
if people don't know this and don't know how Dakotah drives, he kind of has like ABS with his fingers. Like he's kind of like doing this little finger thing with his brake, constantly adjusting it. So he's kind of like modulating his brakes constantly. It's not just like a jab brake, jab
Yeah,
like setting. He's modulating it a lot under braking just to keep the rear ends from sliding around. A lot of people will just kind of brake and get deeper, or a lot of people will kind of jab, have the brake setting so they can jab it and just hit it, and it just goes to a certain amount. So like Dakotah actually has a lot of like ABS and it's built into his fingers. It's kind of an advantage. If you ever watch David Angara, also like he has like ABS and traction control built into his thumb, so he's always kind of bouncing the rev limiter and braking with bumping. It's kind of the same thing, but you're doing it with your pointer finger versus your thumb. So
Yeah, so something I found once we switched to slicks, when you were running treaded tires and stuff back in the day, with the rear motor, you could kind of send the car into the corner a little bit harder. And if you came in a little bit hot, then you would just have a little more rotation. You could kind of flick the car and be fine. But with slicks, if you're sliding, then you're losing speed. If you're really doing anything drastic, then you're losing corner speed. You're scrubbing somewhere. So yeah, with the short straight, I would brake, kind of do a couple pumps, brake, get the car slowed down, and then I kind of let the car settle, roll. You can probably see it here. So I start to brake right there, and then I let off a second, let the car roll, and then I do the final brake to get the car to pivot in the
turn.
corner where I want to
Yeah.
pivot, but not necessarily to really slow down a ton. And I guess the reason I do this is that so I've found I'm able to be a lot more consistent with the braking where I'm not overshooting the corner. Because obviously you're having to charge the corner as fast and hard as you can. So that has just allowed me to be a little bit more consistent. And if I do need to adjust and give a little bit more brake, then I still have the option to. I'm not out of time where I just charge as hard as I can, lay on the brakes, and hopefully I stopped it in the right spot. So that's kind of how I go about it. Obviously, it
Yeah.
depends a little bit on the turns and where you're at. But yeah, I'll slow down initially, let the car kind of settle back down, roll through the corner, and then I'll tap the brakes to get the car to naturally kind of pivot and rotate at that spot that I want it to, and not so much just be on the brake really hard and then turning and going.
So here, so the video series is actually the A main 1, 2, and 3 of Tulamah, not the main race. So this is actually the start of A2. And I thought on A2 that this would be a little different race, but it kind of was the same race where you were able to kind of hold on to your lead, kind of put in some solid laps, get a good start, build a gap, and then kind of just manage the gap from there. Spencer did bring it pretty good this one. I mean, he definitely
Mm-hmm.
was trying to pose a threat, try to stay close enough to kind of put the pressure. And you're doing a great job by not having him stay close enough to put the pressure. And then it ended up being a close race, very at the very beginning of this too. So where do you think your car was exceptional at? Like where did you feel like you had the advantage? Or is Dakotah ignoring me? Did he freeze?
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can hear me. You're just not like coming back.
Yeah.
You're just
So
ignoring. Okay.
so A1 I really think is kind of similar to a Q1. I always try to tell people this, like that's your opportunity to try to get your best result possible as easily as you can. So Q1 and A1, people are
Why
still kind
is
of
that?
trying
Why
to.
why do you say that's your best possibility to get the results?
Yeah, I think people are just a little bit cautious in A1 and
Q1 and
Q1.
A1s.
Yeah, and
You
people are a little
think
bit
they're like
cautious,
starting
a little
off
bit
all slow
tense.
with their guns holstered, just gonna hang out and just not really deliver.
Yeah, like I said, I think
Usually.
people are just a little bit tense, a little bit tight. They don't
Okay.
want to be the first one to make the mistake, and often, that will cause a mistake later on. So as you can see in A1, I was able to get a good gap really quickly, where A2 it took a
Yeah.
little bit longer to get that gap. I had a really good first lap and was able to get that little bit of space where I could run my lines, and then after that, the gap kind of stabilized for a few laps, um, and that was a lot different than A1. And like I said, that's like A2. Everyone's like, okay, we gotta go. We gotta figure this out. We gotta make sure, whoever won the first main doesn't win the second main. If the guy starting out front has some speed on you and you're starting second, then you really gotta go for it in the beginning and try to stay close and force him into a mistake, get him out of the rhythm. So A1 is the opportunity. That's when you got to make it happen. And then as it goes on, same thing with qualifying. As it goes on, A1, A2, A3, it just gets harder and harder to win and have a successful result. So A1 is super super important to make happen. And I think if you win A1, it kind of puts you in a little bit of a
You're in
tough
the driver's
position.
seat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, but it puts you in a little bit of a tough position for A2. It's good, but like I went into that knowing that Spencer was going to go as hard as he could in the beginning. So I know that we all race each other a lot, and I kind of have a good understanding of how racing works now, just with that experience I've had. So I know that that's the case. So like I said, I knew I had to come out of the gate swinging and be on it from the start. And I was able to do that this weekend or that weekend, and yeah, everything was working really good, and just was able to find that flow really easily, and put down the lap times I needed to put down.
Yeah.
But yeah, for everyone out there, like I said, A1 and Q1 is when you want to make it happen, get that good first result, start the weekend out right, and like I said, it's normally a little bit easier to have a good result the first time around than it is later on in the weekend.
Yeah, there it is. That's actually a huge thing that people don't actually consider. They don't actually mentally consider, like, I always feel when we talk about racing, and there's a few things that like kind of stand out as a racer. People always say, "Hey, how do I improve?" And I always think, well, there's three main things that you got to work on. That every racer, I think that you can, if you break down what makes a good racer, you can kind of categorize it into three things, four things, or maybe more if you want to be really specific. But the major thing is one is talent. One is the thing is that you can't replace is you got to have some talent. Second thing is you got to be able to be good at the mental aspect of it, the
Mm-hmm.
strategy, the mental strength, and being able to perform under the pressure. Like if you start out first, your goal is not to crash early. That's like the number one cardinal sin. If you crash early, it's basically over for your race at that point, and you're throwing away your TQ spot. So it's very important to not crash early, and then that's part of the mental strategy. And the last thing I think is very crucial is being able to know your gear, your setup, your knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
having the car advantage through tires or setup information or techniques is huge. The talent is also huge, and the mental game is also huge because if let's say you got the best car in the world, right? Let's say you have a car that's a half a second to a second faster than everybody else, right? But if your mental game is weak, you're not winning that race. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
So regardless of how good your car is, or how talented you are, if you're mentally weak, you're not winning races. The other you can flip flop some of those things around. Like if you're mentally strong but your car's slow, you're not winning races. Um, and yeah, so if your talent is not good and your car setup is good, you got the best tires dialed in. Like you can win any race with these tires, and your setup is dialed, but your talent's not there. It's gonna be a lot harder to win races.
Mm-hmm.
So those are like the three main aspects I think. Mental game is one thing I think a lot of people never work on. They always just work on setup. People like go to the track. I'm gonna try to drive these new shocks, and see what they do. So they go to the track, they try them out, and they look at a lap time. Okay, they're better. It work, but they're practicing the setup game, but they're not really practicing anything mental. And mental
Yeah.
game kind of comes from being able to put yourself in those positions, basically racing a lot. You
Yeah.
know, improving your racecraft, having that the edge over your competition. So like if you have those three factors at a very high level, you're going to do very well at RC racing because those are. I mean, yeah, those are the three things that affect the most. There's a fourth thing, but we can come upon that a little bit later. But anyways, yeah. So this race, perfect race, 3 for 3. What was your best car this race? You think?
um,
You know what? Like, I'm just gonna say, I thought your truck was phenomenal. I mean,
yeah.
like, for what it was supposed to, like, what it is, and watching it drive around the track, it being, I mean, was it as fast or faster than your buggy? Usually, I mean,
It was pretty close to the buggy times. I was really surprised by it. I was happy with the speed. I think the biggest thing was just how easy to drive it was.
yeah,
Normally, a truck is hard to drive, but you can do some crazy fast laps. And I mean, this thing was literally, it was like driving a Cadillac out there. It was so easy to drive. Um, I almost thought at certain points, like maybe it's a little bit too easy to drive. Like I need to get more speed out of it, But I'm looking at the lap times. I'm like, well, the lap times are
yeah,
pretty dang good. So I mean, I guess it's just that easy to drive. So I was really happy with that. We made a lot of changes to that and kind of wasn't sure exactly how it was going to be. And it was awesome. Made a few changes in practice right away and was able to get it pretty dialed in really quick. And then yeah, I thought my tool drive was really good. It was easy to drive. I made a couple of small little changes, but pretty much what I run everywhere. Um, and didn't really have to mess with that too much. And then a four drive. I mean, my four drive was good. It's always good. Had
Yeah.
had a few mistakes in qualifying and stuff, and just really kind of getting on my rhythm. So I think we made one or two changes in the qualifiers. Um, but yeah, I mean, if I was kind of if I was driving good, then the car was good, and I did everything it needed to do. It had good speed. It's tough four wheel drive. Everyone is fast, and I think you can go fast a little bit easier just because it is four wheel drive. You're not having to have everything quite so perfect setup wise. So I think that makes it a little bit tougher. Where with the rear wheel drive, with the 10 scale two drive buggy and truck and stuff, you really have to have everything on point and locked in, good to go setup wise. So yeah, I mean, I was happy with everything the whole weekend. But yeah, truck was pretty dialed in.
Favorite car of the weekend, do you think?
Um,
Just because it was kind of a project, and
yeah,
you
it was.
really didn't really have any expectations. You're like, okay, let's just see what this does. And it was
Yeah,
actually pretty damn good.
I made a lot of changes. Did some stuff to it before we showed up, and just kind of threw it down in practice. And I didn't really know what to expect. Like I said, we made a few changes right away to kind of get that balance right and get it where it needed to be. And then yeah, it was awesome to drive. I always enjoy the how you finesse a tool drive buggy. That's always very like interesting to me, and I really enjoy that. So yeah, I always enjoy
What
driving
do you
that as
mean?
well.
What do you mean finessing a tool buggy? What is that?
I think when it comes to tool drive buggy, there's a lot of skills that
What's the
you have to
finessing
have.
going on? I think people would probably want to know. Like, there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
but what are you managing? Because you do it automatically. Yeah, you're kind of finessing at this high level, and you go out there and you win a race finessing this. But like, what does that mean to when you explain it to other people? Like,
Yeah.
what does he mean finessing a tool? Like,
Yeah.
I get what he's talking about, but like, explain to people what it actually
Okay.
means.
Yeah, well, so first off, a little bit different from that, but just having the setup and having that program is the most critical in tool drive buggy. 100%. You have to have the setup on point. You have to have the tire program on point. The aero package. Everything has to be
Yeah.
working good.
The
Everything has to be dialed
configuration.
in.
The
Yeah.
configuration is what I call this. So like when you
Yep.
go to a certain class or a genre, whatever, there's a fast configuration. And if you go through the process of testing out all the different parts so you can get the fast configuration where it's the easiest to drive, handles the best, and it's the fastest configuration. And that could be like 0 degree caster blocks, could be a different rear wing, it could be a body, it could be the base setup,
Yep.
but it's these parts that actually make like to me when I talk about setup, there's certain things that people adjust that make a driver preference change, and things that people adjust that actually make a time difference. And
Mhm.
the configuration of the car is what actually those are the pieces that make the time difference. Like when
Yep.
you change some of the other things, like the car does a little bit of this or enters a little bit better, you're kind of changing the personality of the car, not really the actual speed of the car, and you're kind of adjusting that personality to fit the driver a little bit better through
Mhm.
these small little changes. But when Dakotah's talking about these parts that he's putting on, it's the configuration that actually once you figure all that stuff out, the car's in its fast form, then you make some small changes and be able to extrapolate all the speed from that car.
Yeah, yeah, and you're talking small changes. You're talking about bolt stud washer, camber link
Yep.
height, shock oil, maybe even springs, things like that, where the configuration is more like hey, you're running the front end mod. You
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
you
Four wheel
have
rear arms. What they
yeah.
figured out the four wheel rear arms, what they did to the car. That's part of the configuration now and generally accepted everywhere where we go. We're running the four wheel arms and no longer two wheel. and the front end mod, that's part of the configuration. So the car in this configuration is actually very fast on many different surfaces. And then when we get to go to these different tracks and put down the car for the first time, usually it's been awesome because it's been in the ballpark where we haven't really had to change too much.
Yeah, so I guess so now we kind of got that talking about like finessing the car. There's a lot of things I think that you have to be really spot on when you're driving the tool drive buggy on the track. So how you're braking, like I'm doing a lot more with the brakes than I am with anything else. So pumping the brakes, adjusting how much I'm hitting the brake in each corner. How many times I'm doing it, trying to like extract every ounce of speed out of it. Another thing could be like how much you're steering, just like trying to, barely be on the wheel because it's right on the edge of flipping because, you're going through the sweeper really fast and there's a ton of grip. I would consider that like kind of like finessing the car. And you can kind of like, when you're really connected, you can feel the car kind of like moving and wiggling a little bit. And, like you're kind of right on that edge there. And if you go, 0.1 mile an hour faster in that corner, then you're going to flip. So just really being right on that edge and balancing that. Scrubbing the jumps, landing on power. There's just so many little things that add up to give you a really great tool drive, lap time, overall pace, just the whole package. There's just a lot of things, a lot of work that is going into trying to maximize that car.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, isn't there? I mean, when we talk about it, we can sit there and talk about this stuff for like hours and hours to like talk about, but when we're actually doing it, it's just kind of happening naturally. So we don't really talk like we'll discuss it. We're gonna kind of go forward, but we don't actually sit there, dissect and kind of analyze everything like in these kind of little things. What somebody had a question about your radio. Do you use the big wheel or the small wheel on your radio? Let's talk about radios a little bit and kind of get people to kind of understand the radio that you work with. I feel like you have like a really insane ability to barely move the steering wheel, and I think a lot of people, and it's your style, it's your driving style, it's your your personality. Some people saw, and some people just barely tiny make baby movements. And this guy told me, so you guys don't know this, but this guy told me he never steers full, and he's usually steering about half of the radio steering. And I'm like, what? What? So that doesn't, I mean, so then he goes, yeah, well, I don't want to scrub my speed. I'm like, what? Okay, well, I get it, but you guys make the turn still, right? But there's something that you do that's different that I think people don't talk about. We don't talk about it, but it's how you use the steering wheel. So we talked about the brakes. You have this ability to kind of modulate your finger so that you're kind of got ABS. You're hitting brakes multiple times to control the slide before it slides. If it slides, you release, and like you're catching on this stuff. You have a feel. There's also something that he does with his radio, his steering wheel. First off, the big wheel or small wheel, but like explain to people when you tell me about using the wheel and barely going past halfway. Like, what does that mean? What? How are you only steering your car halfway? What happens if you steer full? And like, explain to this steering thing and how sensitive and how I think this critical area that people overlap or people don't understand.
Yeah, so I do use the big wheel that comes with it.
Big wheel.
How we kind of talk about, I'm not like crazy specific with the setup. I am I'm very, very specific with the radio.
Yes.
I used to before the 5 Pro or the 6R came out, when I was running the DX3R, the DX4R, me and my dad would spend literally a whole day getting it set up to be exactly how I wanted. Changing throttle springs, changing steering springs, changing the tension, changing out, whatever parts we needed to get it as comfortable as I could, just to be connected. Because that's really like, that's how you be connected with your car, is your radio. So I put a lot of stock and a lot of time into that. And I don't start with a new radio lightly. As far as like, it could be, just switching, say, I've been running the same DX5 Pro, switching to another DX5 Pro is a very big deal to me.
This
which
guy
I
has to have
I
like
don't do that.
3 radios to get the perfect radio, basically, because he's so specific. And like you said, you're not specific about your setup of your car, which is interesting. But the radio, the feel, the
Hmm.
way it twists, the trigger feel, like you're very like, yeah. And you guys don't know this either unless you hang out with Dakotah. His trigger on his radio can barely fit like your half of your nail. Like you barely fit your nail in there,
Yeah.
and that's the way he drives. He drives on the tip of his like fingernail, and he's barely like he's moving it. I don't know why, but it work. Obviously, it works for him, and he drives a little different that way. So when every time I grab his radio, I can't drive it because I can't keep it. I have small hands. I can't get my finger in his little trigger finger.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could put my pinky in there and be all good. But like,
Yeah.
I'm not driving a 2 mile with my pinky, So like, he has a very unique radio setup, and yeah, like he says, he can't go from, let's say, a DX5 Pro that he's currently using, get a new one off the shelf, and then start using it and be comfortable. It's gonna be bugging him. It's gonna be, while he's driving, he's gonna be constantly adjusting his fingers. It's like all this stuff that doesn't work out. So the radio adjustment, it's like, and why is that? Why are you so specific, you think? Is it just because it is that touch point that you have with the car, so that has to be specific for you?
Yeah, I think that's just like that's my connection to the car. That's how I feel and know exactly what the car is going to do, what it is doing, what the limit is. That's how I feel that, and that's how like I'm trying to say this without sounding really strange. That's like how the car like explains to me what it's doing, So I just that's that connection. So I have to be really comfortable with that. If I start with a new radio, then there is no connection anymore. It's something different. So yeah, I'm very specific with the radio. I mean, I literally will just sit there and just feel the steering wheel for an hour and just tweak it a little bit tighter, a little bit looser, a little bit tighter, a little bit looser, just trying to get everything dialed in. But yeah, I do drive a little bit different. I do a radio step a little bit different. I think that's just for my driving style. I do run the steering a lot looser. People ask me all the time if I use a steering spring or not. I do use
That
a
was
steering spring.
dude, that was a urban legend for a long time. People, I
Yeah.
mean, before I even met you and got to know you, I've heard that story. So the story is that so this is what I've heard when I was on JC working with Jason, hanging out with those guys. So, and I don't think it came from Jason or Paul or anything like that, but I heard it from somebody, and they go, "Yeah, did you know that Dakotah, like at one time his radio broke in a race where the spring and his tension and his steering broke, and he just drove around like that, and then he just got used to it, and that's the way he drives." I'm like, "What?" And then they're like, "Yeah, dude, he doesn't have a center in his steering wheel. Like if you flip his steering wheel, it'll just kind of keep bouncing back and forth on his radio." And I'm like, what? Why would? And then they're like, "Well, dude, a real car doesn't center up and just go straight. Like you constantly have to steer it." And I'm like,
I have told people
okay,
that before.
okay, I kind of makes sense. Like you're kind of a real car. It's not just going straight and centering itself. You kind of always have to put some sort of control
Mhm.
on it. Okay, I get that. And like this, that, So then I asked you one time, "Hey man, does your radio, like, do you have a center?" And you're like, "Huh?" And then you're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh well, one, I used to run it really loose." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
well,
So
the
I did
legend
used
is
to run
that
it.
you had no spring."
Yeah, I did used to run it really loose, where it did not center. Like if you had the telemetry pulled up and you let go of the steering wheel, like it would be you'd let go of the wheel, it'd go to like negative
It
30,
just be
and
different
then
numbers.
yeah, if you turn it the other way, it'd go back to plus 20 or whatever. So yeah, it did not center. I just just like a real car, you just kind of drive off of feeling. Um, the drawback to that was pit lane in 8 scale.
Dude,
It makes pit lane very, very difficult. When you're out on the track, you can kind of just naturally kind of go where you want to go and you're flowing. But when you're trying to go perfectly straight into pit lane, it is very difficult and you kind of bounce all over the place. So I did kind of adapt a little bit and learn to run it, kind of
with
like
the
right at the
spring.
edge where it does center now, but it is as light as I can get it with it still centering, and it does not have the center notch feel. That was a big thing that I worked with Spectrum was getting rid of that. center feel. So my radio does center, but it's pretty much non-existent, that
There's
center
no
where it
like
goes flat.
hard click.
Yeah,
The
no, that it doesn't.
transitions rolls over to
Mhm.
it. It's very smooth. So,
Yep.
and if you're not used to that, like a light steering feel, you can't really drive it because, like, dude, it flops all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, so that's a little bit different. And I still do like I trim it to go straight, but then when I'm driving, I normally will do one or two clicks off of that, just because that's just kind of where like I said, where I just kind of naturally drive. So like I said, I trim it to go straight, and then from there I'll adjust one or two clicks from there to just whatever is comfortable for me and feels right to me in the track. And then yeah, I don't use a ton of wheel input. I don't do a lot of things. You know, people think that, oh, you're driving hard, you're going really fast. You know, you're full throttle everywhere, you're full crank, full brake, full everything, and that's not really the case.
Not at
You know,
all. This
the
is like
goal.
this dude is the total opposite of full crank. Like he might be full trigger, but like there's not like there's not it's not it doesn't translate right. And then when you
Yeah,
realize it and you talk to Dakotah and he's telling you about some of the inputs, he goes, I can't even turn my car past halfway, and I'm like, what? Like, yeah, dude, I'm like, just like, I can't use more than half the steering wheel. And I'm like, how are you getting around the track? Like, I can never drive a car that is so touchy and sensitive, you know? Like, yeah.
yeah, and you know, that's a little bit just kind of how what works for me and how I drive. It's kind of a running joke in the pits. Like most of the time, I'll come back. Oh, I could use a little bit more steering. Um,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's kind of a running joke. Like I'm always want more steering. Want it to be a little bit more aggressive. You know, I
But
feel
he
like that
doesn't
makes.
use it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the funny part is he doesn't actually
yeah.
steer as much. It's just more usable steering in the way he wants to use it, right?
Yep. So yeah, I you know, some people have a hard time with the setups. They're usually pretty aggressive for most people. You know, but you can start there and then adjust from there. But yeah, you know, I like a lot of steering, and I don't use a ton of the wheel. It's just kind of how I've gotten used to it. I
Yeah.
think a lot of it is when we first switched to uh, mid motor and lay down and slicks and stuff. The car, you know, the 22 4.0 and stuff had its steering early on in the wheel input, and then as you get farther in the wheel, it get pretty pushy. So I kind of had to adapt a little bit to that, and you know, find where the speed was, and you know, that's what I'm comfortable with now. And yeah, I think the more movement you do to upset the suspension or just upset the car in general, like you know, the easier it is to flip, the harder it is to be consistent. So I set my cars up aggressive, where then I can be smooth, and the car
Yeah.
has its speed. It carries good corner speed. It's fast, and then my job is to not be over aggressive with it. You know, I'm not cranking on the wheel. I'm not just jabbing the brakes once. I'm not doing anything to upset the car a ton, and really just maximizing the corner speed, maximizing the efficiency, and that's really the big difference, where the consistency comes from. You know, there's a lot of people that can go fast and throw down those fast lap times, but being able to adjust your driving to do those lap times, but not be driving at 100% or not have the car maxed out at 100% is really that challenge there.
Mm.
And just being able to do it every lap, you know, especially now that we're running slicks, that's really tough. You're always on edge pretty much no matter what you do. And then 8 scale with the longer mains, you know, you have to be able to lock in and do those laps with the least amount of risk possible. And I think once you kind of get into a groove, you know, especially with the 8 scale side of things where it's longer mains, it actually becomes a little bit easier, and you can actually do even faster lap times than you were doing before, and you're trying less, so to speak. You know,
Hmm.
you're not trying to go as fast. You're just being efficient and letting the car do the work, and you're not trying to make it go fast. You're just letting it be fast.
There's there's like sometimes when obviously I watch a lot of people on the track. The last 5 6 years, all I've been doing is really watching cars on the track, right? So like, there's certain people when you watch them that they make the car look effortlessly, go around the track and go around the track fast, and then you watch some people their lap time's the same, but the level of effort, the way it looks, it's like you could tell they're pushing 110%, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And there's a difference. Do you know what that difference, like, can you explain to people what that difference is, or why a certain person's style is driving 110% or looks like that way, but then somebody who's driving like super easy and chill, and they can put the same lap time down, but it
Mm-hmm.
looks totally different. So
Yeah.
what's going on between those two different styles? Why are they able to hit the same lap times, but like become two radical different ways to go about it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is driving style, but you set up your car around your driving style. So the cars are going to be set up a little bit different. You can see a difference, when you're watching like, say Mayfield or Lutz. They have different driving styles, but they both are very aggressive. They're charging hard. You can see like, they're sending it, they're launching off of jumps, they're drifting, they're driving hard. You can see that. And then you have people like like Jared or Cav who are very very smooth drivers. They have, like I said, they drive a lot different style wise, but they're both very smooth, very efficient, not making a lot of mistakes, and just really kind of like flowing around and not upsetting the car a ton. So you have your driving style, you have what works for you, and then you kind of adjust and set up the car around that so that you drive how you want to drive. And then that kind of like shows in what the car looks like. But yeah, there's not really a right way or wrong way to go about it. I see it when I watch Supercross, Motocross a lot, and you can see that as well. There's a lot of different techniques. The riders will ride a lot differently,
Yeah.
and kind of have that same efficiency. You saw it with Tomac and Sexton in the Motocross series. Tomac charges hard, is using a lot of clutch, really on the throttle, really aggressive, and then Sexton doesn't use a ton of clutch, kind of just stays up on the pegs and flows around and has a good flow, and they're battle until the very end. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, and I think just being able to recognize your style and understanding that is going to be an advantage, and then you can set up your car based around that and get it dialed in so it works best for you.
There you go. Driving styles, I think it's very important to kind of understand, what your strengths are as a driver, and then be able to kind of find somebody, or be able to get somebody to help you kind of, because like I think when we start to see a lot of these DO teams where you have like a driver and a mechanic, and really it's kind of like an extra set of eyes on the car to
Mm-hmm.
watch. It's really watching the car and being like, okay, dude, the car's, and if you know that person, the driver, and their driving style, because I already kind of know what setup changes to make for Dakotah, after watching his car on the track, and then we'll come back and I'll get his input to see what he wants to change or what he thinks of the car, and then I will kind of give him mine. And usually, it's always kind of like I already kind of know what he would be wanting to change, just because I know how he wants his driving style and what he's looking for in the car. So like, we'll kind of and then I think it's probably why things have kind of gotten a lot easier at these races, where we kind of already know, like, I already know what your driving style, what you're looking for. I already know what kind of upsets you or stresses you. So like,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of go through these race weekends. We have very little changes going on in the pits. And then once upon a time, we used to wholesale. Like,
Yeah.
almost every run on Teal and 8-scale buggy. Like, every run was like, oh man, what do we do? It's like, dude, I don't know. We're off the pace. Like, okay, well,
Yeah.
we got to do something, because we're not just a little off the pace, and then like eventually by the end of the weekend we'll get to the pace. But it was always a lot of changes, and last couple of races, probably last half year or so, there's been very little changes, and just more focus on all I see you really do at 8-scale races now is glue your tires up and then kind of do your little tire thing, and then don't really we don't really do. I mean, you'll go and tune your engines before your races, and then that's really it. We don't really,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll go and refresh the cars before main day on Sunday before the mains, and spend some hours doing that, and then we just go race, and then it ends up pretty good. So like, I think being able to understand your style and having somebody help and give you the feedback so that you can help that driver find more of that and be able to recognize it, and be able to kind of make steps to have setups or have a program or have changes ready to that kind of helps them in races. It's these small details I think are so small that in some ways when you add up these small little details, it becomes something in the end. You know what I mean? It's like these small little, being stress free, having fun, that all accumulates. Having a car set up in the way you like to drive, having that free time and not stressing or rushing. Like those things really kind of add into, I think, a very awesome weekend. And last weekend at the SIC, you obviously had a pretty awesome weekend. So I kind of wanted to switch gears into SIC, kind of drop the 10 scale, get into 8 scale a little bit. Obviously, the first race, Mike was able to go. I was flogged with a lot of emails and team things and team accounts and all that kind of responsibility. So I had to kind of take care of that and wasn't able to join you guys. But yeah, what'd you think of SIC, the track layout, and it being the first kickoff race of the year where everybody's kind of testing out their new gear this year? I don't think you changed one thing.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much running exactly what not pretty much, I am running exactly what I was last year. Same everything. So that obviously makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, I went out to SIC and, kind of started off pretty like slow, not lap time wise, but just kind of like a slow, easy weekend to start in practice and stuff. Didn't really have anything crazy going on. Went out and, ran the triggy and it was pretty good. It had a good balance. I'm like, okay, decent lap times. We're on the right second. It feels good, easy to drive.
You got to be in the right second early on in 8 scale. Like you can't really count the tenths yet because there's so much changing going on. But
especially in practice. Like if you're in the ballpark, then
if you're in the right second, you're doing pretty good.
You're in the right. If you're in the right second, the car is doing what you want it to do. Then I'm usually pretty okay with that.
We've been in an 8 skill track where we were like 2 seconds off the pace. We're like, what did Mayfield do, or what did Spencer do? Like, oh man.
All right, then you gotta make some changes. But yeah, as long as you're in the ballpark, you're good to go. I made a few changes to my nitro buggy, really just to kind of get a little bit closer to my e-buggy. It was really cold and the track was pretty low grip to start. So went down in sway bar a little bit, moved the shocks inside in the front arm. Went down in shock oil, those kinds of things. Nothing crazy, nothing yard sale. Just kind of getting the balance right for how cold it was. It was in the 30s and the 40s for the most part, especially in the building. So very cold.
Now you know
the dirt was cold. Yeah, the air was cold, and the track was pretty simple as far as like lap time wise. There wasn't really anything you could do to make up time. In practice and qualifying. So qualifying was pretty slow as well. Not 100% where I wanted to be, but I was kind of in the hunt. I was just having to push really hard. I think how everybody was having to push really hard to try to get the laps. Everyone was really close. I mean, I remember, there would be, and we'd be in the A group, and there'd be seven or eight different people that had led a lap or led for a second before the next person crossed the line. Like there was a lot of flip-flopping going around. It was very, very close racing and qualifying, and there really wasn't, like I said, much you could do. The holes weren't really developing. There was only a couple little sections you had to be semi-careful on, but it really wasn't slowing you down. So ended up qualifying first, second, and third. And ended up peaking the nitro buggy. Had really good speed with that in the end. And e-buggy and truggy were good. Like I said, you're just full throttle, full commitment, and everyone's doing that. So there's only so much you can do. So I was pretty content, I guess, to start where I did. Not exactly where I wanted to be, but this is kind of one of those growing moments I learned last year is especially with the 8-scale racing. You're not having to. It's okay to not always be the fastest in qualifying and not have those crazy fast laps. I normally have the ability to go really fast, but have to work on limiting the mistakes and stuff. And it was a little bit different at SIC. I didn't quite have the crazy speed in qualifying, so just kind of took what we had and put myself in a good position for the mains. And then when main time came around, the track was tougher and there was more grip. People were making more mistakes. You had to really pick your lines, avoid certain holes. And it was kind of a little bit of a chess game. People are moving around trying to figure out where they need to go, where they can hit the same limes and the same lap times every time. So that kind of separated everyone out a little bit. Um, and that's kind of when the cars came alive and had the good speed that I needed to be able to win, and had really good consistency. Yeah, this Juggy race was really really cool. It was a lot of fun. For the first 8 or 10 minutes or so, everyone was me, Ryan, and Jerry were battling hard, really close together.
Jared TQ this, didn't he? He started
Yep.
first, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Then Mayfield, then you. So you were, like you said, you started out third. You weren't the fastest, but you're like, okay, well, I don't really need to be the fastest. I just got to win on Sunday.
Yeah, and like I said, that would have in the past, that would have kind of like stressed me out, and I would have been not super pumped, and like we gotta figure something out. But just kind of took it easy, and tried not to stress about it. And knew when come main time, like I knew the car was solid. It was easy to drive, and it was pretty close speed wise. So I knew, like I said, when the track got harder, that the consistency would play a role, and that the speed would come when it needed to be. Especially on these tracks, we're in soft tires and it's indoor and stuff. It's a little bit of a different feeling car wise. So you need the car to be easy to drive. As the tires heat up, they're soft. You're running 30 minutes out there. So you need your car to be consistent and be predictable and kind of know where you want it to be. So as you can see, the track was drying out now. It was kind of grooving up. So new grip was going to be good, and kind of decided to go out on the green compound tires, because I wanted to have that grip. I've tried to play it safe before and run the harder
What were your
tires.
tire choices for the main? Like, what were you contemplating? Green,
Yeah, so
blues?
yeah, greens or blues, and then I had the option of for Truggy for Flex and the new relapse. I decided to go with the relapse, and I mean I knew it would be decent, but really my main thing was just I have a lot of experience with the reflex, so kind of wanted to switch it up, run the relapse, see how it did it on longer main, and see how it did with a little bit of dust. So I did that. I ended up doing the foams to be a little bit more consistent, but then have that grip with the softer compound. So went that route, and I think it was the right option.
Yeah. It's hard to figure out, okay, do I glue or not glue? Do I,
Yeah.
like you're kind of in between a lot of these races where you could do both. So the start of the race, you're kind of just obviously all three of you guys are experienced racers. You're gonna be like, okay, let's just get out of the field here, do our little battle.
Yep.
Tebow goes hard the first lap, gets a pretty good comfy cush.
Yeah, I mean you
It's a
can
pretty
see.
typical race.
Yeah, you can see the top four have quite a bit of they're pretty spaced out between us. Nothing crazy, but we gave each other a little bit of space. And then behind it, everyone's just stacked up, which is why it's important to kind of get that decent qualifying result, so you can kind of do this in the beginning. And yeah, you can see Jerry got a really good start, and then you can tell pretty quickly like
What
when Ryan decides like
what truggy is Jared going with this year? Since
um,
Mayappa doesn't have a truck.
yeah. So from what I didn't really look at specifically, but from what everyone was saying, he was running the techno truck just because that's what he's used to.
Yeah, that makes sense, right?
So yeah,
That's what I was
makes sense.
assuming. It'd be weird if you like just got like a Kyosho again.
Yeah.
I was like, it'd be funny if you just got a Kyosho, But here we go. So the race starts off. Obviously Jared's going really fast at this point. His stuff must be really good at the beginning, maybe a little slower at the end. Whereas your guys' stuff probably was a little bit medium at the beginning, maybe better at the end.
Yeah, I didn't really know exactly how it was a close save there. I didn't really know exactly how Jerry was going to come out. I feel like in the beginning you kind of just everyone kind of just feel each other out where they're at speed wise and lines and stuff. And I mean you can see he kind of got that gap, and then it kind of stabilized out. You can see I kind of closed up a little bit on Ryan, not like too crazy, but just kind of like, hey, we gotta like let's go. Let's not let him get too far out front. So I still gave Ryan plenty of space, not trying to like do anything crazy or get by him, but just kind of like close enough to just be there if I need to be, and if there's a mistake I can get by, but if not, like I'm still pretty okay being in third in where everyone's at. Like I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. I'm not crazy stressed. And as
Yeah.
you can see, Ryan's closing up, so I kind of almost like had backed off a little bit that last lap, and wasn't stressing too crazy. So yeah, now kind of like you kind of have to just be aware. Like I know what Jared's pace is now at the moment. So obviously like right here, Ryan and I have closed up on each other. So I kind of have to be thinking about like if Ryan gets by Jared, is he going to be going a lot faster or is he about the same pace? And just kind of keep that in mind. So you can see I kind of start to put some pressure on Ryan just because I don't want him to get by Jared and then find out he has a lot more speed in the tank, kind of pull away. So
So you basically know Tebow's speed right now, but you don't really know Ryan's yet.
Yeah,
And you're trying to stay close just in case if Tebow like tips up on two wheels, Ryan gets by. That if he does have extra gear, that you got to stay close.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of strategy in the main and the 8 scale races and stuff. You really like. I mean, I'm consciously kind of thinking about this. I'm not necessarily like talking in my head, but this is all going through my mind. I'm aware of all this. And also being aware of like the pits and stuff, the pit time. Mike has a lot of experience with me, so we're kind of communicating when that time comes with the mileage and stuff. I know what mileage I have, and I know I can kind of adjust a little bit with my mileage. So I know where I was at in qualifying, how I was driving, and then how I'm driving now. So normally this first stop, if we're thinking about pushing the mileage, I'll drive a little bit easier, be a little bit smoother on the throttle, not pulling quite as far, and get to that first pit stop, see where I am mileage-wise, and then whoever's pitting me, in this case Mike, can let me know, hey, you're using this much fuel, and then I can kind of adjust my driving from there where I need to.
Oh man. And there it is. That end of the straightaway definitely got bumpy. Like that was where people were. You could see mistakes come out of people in there.
Yeah, there was a lot of chop there, and it really just depended how hard you hit the brakes and where you hit the brakes, if the car would step out or get a bounce or anything. So it started out like being you could go inside the bumps, but then there started to be a bump like right before that really rough section. You can see the cars bounce up a little bit, and there's a bump on the inside. So you kind of had to go middle to out. So yeah, here everything's kind of closing up. When I got by Ryan, there was just kind of I was close enough to take the opportunity, but like I said, I wasn't like crazy close to him. He kind of checked up, made sure we weren't going to hit, and then same thing there. Jared kind of messed up. We all kind of checked up just to make sure we weren't going to hit collector, do anything crazy. I think we're all like, we're all in a good position. We have a little bit of a gap, but if we crash, then everyone else isn't that far behind. So just kind of balancing that risk right there. So now I'm kind of thinking like, okay, it's time to pressure Jared. I know what his pace is. It's been pretty much the same at this point. So I'm thinking this is what his pace is going to be. So I'm thinking like, okay, if I can get around Jared, maybe I can throw in some heaters, kind of get a little bit of a gap. And I still don't know exactly what Ryan's pace is going to be. So just kind of keeping that in mind. And as you can see, I think probably Ryan probably thinks about that too, and so he starts to put some pressure back on me, just to kind of keep it where I can't go wherever I want. I have to be thinking about behind me and in front of me a little bit.
Yeah, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, right? I mean, like, you can't let people get too comfortable out there because the more comfortable you are, the less mistakes you're going to make, the easier it is for you to drive. So when you put people in pressure moments, like staying close to the bumper like these, like these 3 trucks so close to each other, like just Lance just said it, like you guys are racing so close together, not bumping each other, not getting all crazy and forcing and making it ugly. You guys are just racing each other, and that's so rad to see that you guys are putting on a show like this. I mean, that's kind of like why we watch pro. This is why, we want to come and watch the best of the best, is to see this right here. Like you guys going at it, 3 trucks, close bumper to bumper, and all the things that you're talking about, the strategy changes, what you're thinking, what's going in your head, how you're approaching your race, how you're analyzing Jared, how you're analyzing Mayfield, your competition, like all the, like you've got all this going on, and I don't we don't really get to see and break down these kind of moments. And we just kind of put a podium picture up. Hey, great weekend, this, that, thanks for the support, and we move on. But we never really kind of sit and discuss and actually kind of, I guess, in some ways, like give the respects to this kind of level of racing. You know what I mean? Like it is so cool to see the top end racing, how much there is involved, like not just the setup of the cars, not just somebody's hot lap, it's like all these strategies going in, all these factors, tire choices, pit guys, like being able to tag and chase people and keep up, and like so many critical things that make a moment and make a race.
No, it was a blast, and as you can see, Jared just went and pitted the last lap, and Ryan just pitted now. So I'm out front with a little bit of a gap. That really comes back to the whole mileage side of things. Just knowing what my mileage is, and then taking it easy through the first pit stop. So I went another lap before I come in here, just to try to throw on a couple. I had 2 laps pretty much to try to get enough of a gap that when I come in to do my pit right here, they come out that I can be in front of Jared now, and then I can kind of control the pace. We knew what my mileage was, so Mike really threw down a really solid pit stop, super fast. Got me probably like a 2-second gap there. So really that's a combination of doing a couple of good laps when I needed to, and then a really fast pit stop. We knew my mileage was really good, so we didn't have to get it very tippy-toppy full. Just came in, got as much, got it full enough where I was going to be fine, but didn't have to take that extra second and make sure that it's absolutely full. And then was able to get this little bit of a gap here and then kind of control the pace and see where we're at. And when all 3 of us were together, we were all really close. I'm sure a lot of people thought we were like crazy close, but we were all being pretty like chill about it. Not trying to do anything crazy. Like you said, we're not bumping each other.
We're not forcing the issue at all.
No, we all were very in control and just staying close, just to see if the person will make a mistake and get by, and looking for opportunities to get by. But you're not we weren't like pushing crazy or bumping or trying to send in on the inside or anything. It was all very like controlled and nothing. We all knew like no one was going to do anything crazy. There's a couple times someone would like mess up, and I like would go to the inside or check up or vice versa, and just kind of poking it in there, but not taking that risk. It wasn't that time of the race yet.
No, I mean, dude, you guys just made your first pit stop. You guys are less than 10 minutes in a 30-minute race. Like, obviously, there's a lot of time left, and you guys are managing this race awesome. Unfortunately, in this race, we got Dakotah here checking out. And then the Mayfield actually starts to make a pretty positive, pretty hard charge, and ended up actually getting the lead before the second pit stop. And then actually having an issue. Dakotah two wrecks actually. His lead right here that he has on Mayfield, 2 wrecks kind of cost him the lead. And then gave Mayfield the lead, but then Mayfield had an issue. So it would have been a really exciting race, I think, had it been able to have. Jerry kind of stuffs it there. So had Mayfield been able to not have that issue, but I think we've been on both ends where we've had our flame out issues in races, and then we have Mayfield having his. It just kind of comes and goes. You know what I mean? Like
part of it.
Yeah, it's just part of it. Sometimes you'll be on the pace. And you're gonna have a great race with somebody, but they have a issue, and they can't finish properly. So it sucks, man. But this is 8 skill. Like I said, we've been on the receiving end of not being able to finish race because of issues, and so unfortunately for Mayfield. But so I obviously I'd love to sit here and watch all the videos, but that would be probably another hour and a half, and then we have Q&A. But let's just wrap up this video here and then get back to chatting about the rest of the year. So SIC wraps up, flawless victory there, 3 wins, Clash of Champions, 3 wins. We're on a perfect streak. So when I first joined the team, I was like, man, like this dude wins a lot of races. And I think now I feel like we go into a race weekend, it's like a chance to win every race almost. I hate to want to feel that way, like we should win every race, but I also I'm also proud to know that I'm a part of a team that can go out to any 10 skill, 8 skill race and hopefully get a win. So like so far a great start to the year, man. I mean, what's on the blocks for the next? So we
Yeah,
got
SDRC for the INS is coming up. I was kind of going back and forth on that, but decided to go out, do a little bit of tensor racing, and then going to stay for a few days afterwards and do some 8 skill testing out in Cali. Kind of get ready for Nitro Challenge, run through some parts and stuff, and just kind of get dialed in for a Nitro Challenge, which, like you said, it's a few weeks away, but it's coming up quick. So gonna go out there, do that. Like I said, do a little bit of 10 skill racing, do some 8 skill testing, and then just be prep for Nitro Challenge after that.
yeah. So the next focus really is kind of getting ready for DNC. Big international race for us, obviously. Something I look forward to every year just to see everybody around the world. It was cool to see everybody at the Worlds in Spain, and then we'll hopefully see most of the European racers at the DNC this year too. So yeah, gearing up for DNC. We got a couple 10 skill races in the middle, or we have a 10 skill race in the middle before DNC, and then we have that practice session. So that'll be fun, and then straight into Desert Classic right after DNC.
Yep.
Pretty much get back into 10 scale, man. Jeff Keaton asked the question actually, and I just opened up the floor for Q&A. So if you have a question, we'd like to give you an answer. Hopefully I can do that. So please post your questions in the comment section. I'll be able to do that, or I'll be able to go through and filter the questions and hopefully get them answered for you. And then Jeff asked a question about what is the biggest difference between 8 skill and 10 skill driving styles for you? Like, how are the cars different? Or do you have, I mean, are you still just controlling a radio controlled car at this point? Or do you approach it like these are two different cars? I got to have a totally different driving style. And I'm driving an 8 skill buggy. This is how I drive it. I'm driving a 10 skill buggy. This is how I got to drive it. Are they completely different to you? Or do you take the approach where they're similar, just a different RC thing?
Yeah, I think I would say that my general driving style is the same between 10 skill and 8 skill. There's a lot of like very specific things that you have to do differently and drive differently. So 10 scale is, like I said, very minimal movements, being really smooth, and you want to do that with 8 scale as well. But you have to drive a little bit different, when you're avoiding holes and hitting bumps and stuff. So I'll still pump the brakes in 8 scale, but a lot of it is more like you pump, you hit the brakes when there's a smooth section, let off when you hit a bump, then tap the brakes again once the car's settled again. So same like general principles and general driving style, but there's a lot of little specific things that you do differently. You're still trying to be smooth on the throttle, but you have to think about fuel mileage. So landing full throttle is, you probably tend to do a little bit less in 8 scale versus 10 scale. Because you're trying to be efficient as you can with the fuel mileage. And then you have a little bit more room to move around in 8 scale, especially when the track gets rough. You can kind of open the lines up a lot more, take some different lines, and there's that balance of doing the outsides that are smoother versus the insides that you can go slower, but it's rougher. So you're kind of moving around a lot more on the track in 8 scale, and you don't have to be as crazy close to the pipes. Specifically, unless you're trying to avoid a hole, and if that's the case, then maybe you need to be. But with 10 scale, you're kind of really just doing the fastest line, not influenced by anything else other than like that is the fastest line to go around the track. In 8 scale, that isn't always so cut and dry. Early on there's just a fastest line, but as it starts to get rough, there's different lines that you can take and kind of open up. At SIC at the end of the straightaway, there actually started to be a really wide line that grew that started to form around the holes. And a lot of people were doing that, where I was going inside, going through the rough stuff, but I was going in a very specific spot on the rough stuff. So I was going inside where it wasn't quite as choppy as in the middle. And the lines tended to be probably about the same speed. I had to be a little bit more careful on the inside that I wasn't going to flip, but I didn't have to go as fast, where on the outside they kind of just went as fast as they could, but you're taking up more track, so it's a little bit longer. And so it kind of equaled out to be about the same, but that's just kind of something you have to be aware of with 8 scale. and kind of always adapting your lines, changing your lines, and kind of just looking on the track to see where you can go.
Yeah, lines, man. 8 scale gotta for me, not being a very I don't really do 8 scale at all. E-buggy here and there, E-Nats. I'm looking forward to E-Nats with the 40 plus battle with the TLR team. We got money on the line, guys. So
Yeah.
you guys don't know this. We have a 40 plus TLR team battle. Post away myself, Sontag, Kaufman, everybody that's 40 plus going to ENAS on TLR. You gotta be a part of it. There's no
That'd be fun.
but so I think the pot is like $40. It's either 20 or $40. Everybody's gonna pay. Winner takes all, and then we're gonna see who the king of 40 plus on the TLR team, so we can talk crap to everybody else.
Oh yeah, that'll be a good time.
So this will
sure.
be a great time, and it'll be a cool way. I mean, this is gonna bring back a lot of fun in 8 scale racing for me. So I got my my car ready to go, built it up. I sent you a picture, but I'm using it as a base to kind of gauge this little starter box thing. So, anyways, I'm ready. I'm ready for this. So, anyways, 8 scale. Lots different for me. What I have to get used to for 8 scale for being a guy that doesn't really do it all that often is just the size of the track. It's just so different, right? So my approach, as I do more 8 scale, the comfort gets better for me. So at first I'm very timid, especially on the far left corners or in the far right corner of it. And then as I do it more through the weekend, I'm more confident, more comfortable. But my driving style for 8 scale or my approach, I probably don't really have one, let's just say, but there's certain things you definitely have to kind of adjust, right? The steering and how you control, how you operate, but the surface obviously different. The track changes a lot. And if you're a guy like me where you only race one class at an 8 scale event, it could be like 6 hours before you're back on that track.
Yeah.
And so in 6 hours, the track that you drove on is totally different from the track all the lines that you had could be totally different by 6 hours later. So in 8 scale, you do have to kind of I feel like that's one of the biggest things, approaches that you have to really pay attention to the track in 8 scale.
Yeah.
Because you don't have as much practice runs, there's a lot bigger lines at some of these 8 scale races. There's 1,000 people. So like you don't have, well, not 1,000 people, but 1,000 entries. So that it's stacked out. So you don't actually have a lot of run time or practice time. So you can't, do a lot of adjustments, or any adjustment you do, you take an hour to actually get back on the track to try. So by the time that happens, the track might be changed again, but certainly it will be changed in 5 to 6 hours. And certainly your runs will be affected by it. So paying attention to the track before you run on 8 scale is so much more crucial, I think, than on 10 scale. Like 10 scale, I barely look at the track. I look at the track and I look at the grip level. Oh, grip went up. But I don't look at the track to say, oh, my line's got to change. Oh, I can't take this jump at this spot anymore because it's all pitted out and all rutted. So like that's like the biggest difference. Driving wise, probably the same. The difference is that I really have to pay attention to the track in 8 scale because it evolves so much.
Yeah, and you're switching tires and compounds a lot more than you are in 10 scale. So making those decisions and having that stuff ready to go as well is kind of another thing you have to be aware of. That's different. 10 scale, you can change foams or glue sidewalls or do run bands or something like that. But you're normally not like changing compounds or going crazy. Changing tread patterns. It's you running slicks. So that's kind of something to keep in mind with 8 scale as well.
Okay, so yeah, so we got another question. So we guys open up Q&A. We got a question here. A lot of questions about a new car. We're working on a new car. Yeah, there's some excitement next year, I think, for TLR. We're definitely working on the new stuff. I can't really give any timelines or any stuff like that. So there is some new things coming in for next year. Parts wise, new kit. I don't know the timeline on that specifically, but there's definitely newness coming. So that's a good thing. So it's obviously right now we're going through the testing phase and planning on what that car is and what it will have, and going through and testing all that stuff. So yeah, there's definitely works. That's a great excitement, I think, for TLR. We've been wanting a new two-wheel drive for a long time, despite the fact that I believe we do have probably one of the most solid all-around two wheels. Like when we go to these races, there's not many things that we change. Even from some of the stock guys were like Nate Sutherland and those guys, we don't really change. I've set up his cars. Dakotah doesn't really change much on his two-wheel or four-wheel. Nate doesn't really change much on his car. He'll ask for like a little more steering or a little more side grip or a little more forward drive, and we'll do a couple changes here and there. But in terms of the base setup, it doesn't really change much. So despite not, I mean, obviously we want a refresh, new geometry, newer parts, newer things, quick to access diff and stuff like that. So hopefully I'm not part of the design team, but hopefully all that makes it onto the design project. So good stuff there. Working on something new all the time here. 13 mil shocks in 10 scale. Have you had a chance to run them, try them, anything like that, Dakotah?
I have not, but yeah, definitely some testing we're gonna be doing
good
in the future. Yeah, definitely some testing that I'm gonna be doing, here in the future shortly. So yeah, there's some options out there now, and we're aware that there is a possibility and just an avenue to go down, just kind of learn and see where it's at. So
yeah, there's definitely some ideas. I got hit up by some of the product developers on the Tentacle side, which is great because they ask me questions. That means they're working and thinking about it. That means hopefully my feedback and my experience can kind of make it into some of their projects. So yeah, I think like I said, I don't know any timelines or dates, but I just know that the stuff that they're asking me are all the questions that I'm hoping to get asked so that I can give them the feedback that I feel that the project needs in order to go the right direction. So even Dakotah, everybody, that are linked to this project, I think it's the right steps are going in the right direction. So that's a good thing. People are getting asked the right questions, the right people being asked questions. I think the involvement's gonna be good. So I think that is going to have a great impact on the final product. So it just takes time, guys. I know everybody was like chomping at the bit to get something new and build something new and get all the latest and greatest. We will have small updates throughout the year for the two wheel. So I can say, and I'm excited for to kind of get it on pace with what Dakotah is actually currently running. So all those little bits that he's been kind of running on carpet, hopefully will be out into the public throughout the year. So that'll be nice to get that out there. So let's see. Question about the 5.0 tranny gearbox brace and if you use all the screws on the gearbox. This is a kind of a little interesting piece. There was a transmission brace, chassis brace that goes under the transmission that clips to the motor plate and to the transmission gearbox itself, and then to the chassis. We haven't used this product in competition because I feel like we haven't had the need, you know what I mean, to try to keep testing and pushing the envelope. Like Dakotah says, when he kind of doesn't change the car too much, and if it's a winning formula, he kind of works on his driving to deliver his potential in his driving. But if the car is fast enough to win, then that's fast enough to win. Then he has to kind of deliver on his end. So currently, right now, we both feel like the car is fast enough to win at any race we go to. So we haven't really had a chance to use this transmission stiffener brace. But I do think there is probably a place and purpose for it. And I think in the future, when I get to high bite carpet track, that I'll like to try that and see what it does exactly to the car and how it changes it, and see if Dakotah will like it later on, if I think it's something worth trying.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I'm not necessarily for or against it, but
Yeah.
I would be a little bit hesitant, just because I've done a lot of testing in the past with flex in the back and stuff, and I'm sure it does make it easier to drive, but normally it will take away some speed, some maneuverability, and stuff like that. So that's not really something that I'm specifically looking for at the moment. But yeah, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a good option for you, and something to try and see if it works.
Perfect. Your mom asked, "What's?" I think I know the question, their answer to this, but what are you looking forward to the most this year, nitro or electric?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this year it's Electric World's year,
Yep.
so that's the focus. There's definitely some things on the eighth skill side that I want to check off this year and make happen, or hopefully be able to accomplish. But at the end of the day, it's a 10 skill World's year, and it's in the U.S. So that's where we're at. That's what everyone is gunning for. That's what everyone's looking towards. And yeah, it's 10 scale.
Yeah, 10 skill. You're kind of, I've asked you this question a few times in the past. You're kind of a 10 skill guy because I was like 8 skill or 10 skill. You're like 10 skill.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of a 10 skill guy at heart. That's kind of what you grew up doing first. And then obviously kind of your first love. So, and then it's a 10 skill world's year. So I was kind of thinking that 10 skill probably be his choice for this year. And maybe next year it could be 8 skill again. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, there was a question about wheels. Somebody asked, let's see, was it Lewis? No, it's kind of back up further. Brian Cliff. Yeah, Brian asked if we were using different wheels for stiffness or softness or flex and things like that. Some of the guys using AE wheels. I don't think anybody's on the team is using AE wheels specific on TLR. Some of the guys on TLR are sponsored by Proline or JC or AK, so they'll use that brand of wheel instead of a TLR wheel. But wheels do have a different flex, and they do weigh differently. So certain wheels flex more, certain wheels are a little stiffer, certain wheels are heavier, and certain ones are lighter. So there's Proline wheels, or the velocity wheels, are known to be super light, and because they're lighter, there's less material, obviously, so they're a little bit more flexible. So you can kind of tune with wheels a little bit, but it's usually kind of the front wheels that make the most difference. The rear wheels are kind of all generally pretty stiff, and then you can get really stiff if you want a really stiff wheel. So do you feel like there's any tuning in wheels? You generally obviously use JC wheels pretty much predominantly. I don't think you've used the TLR wheel for a long time. Maybe truck was the only thing, but now that we've kind of do the mod offset with the truck, you can use your JC mono wheels, right?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, when you're running the standard offset in the front, you're running the different wheels, so that makes it makes sense just to kind of match up the rear with the front. Just a lot of looks wise, it does make a little bit difference as flex as well. I don't really do a ton of tuning with the wheels, but definitely something that I'm aware of and something that you see. Typically I would say like the tire manufacturers' wheels are softer, and have a little bit more flex to them. They have typically more grip, but the trade after that is a little bit less stability. With the TLR wheels, they're normally a little bit stiffer, a little bit more rigid and solid, so a little bit less grip, but they are more stable, easier to drive, things like that. So something to keep in mind. I'm not going crazy back and forth. If you're running the standard front end on the front of the two-wheel drive, you can run the standard versus the stiff Izzle wheels, and I kind of go back and forth on that. That's a good tuning option, and kind of show you the difference. When I ran the standard stock front end, I would always run just the TLR standard wheels, not the stiff Izzle, just because I wanted the grip. If you're running on a really high bite track and you can't get the car to be tamed down enough, then a stiffer wheel, could be an option to kind of get some of that stability back.
Yeah, wheels tuning, there's definitely tuning with that, for sure. But I think for most people, It's one of those fine details. You can still do a lot with your driving. You know what I mean? Like your driving still is what matters, not really your wheels.
Yeah, I
Unless
would
you're at
be not too crazy stressed
yeah,
about that or getting
I
to
wouldn't
that
be
too
too hung
crazy.
up on the wheels to softer wheels. You could just try it and see if you prefer some, but we kind of pick one and then we don't think twice about it and just kind of race the weekend without ever thinking about wheels and wheel stiffnesses. Sometimes it comes into play when you're off the pace, I guess, but it usually doesn't. It's not really something we consider as the wheel stiffness. We do obviously we know and care about it, but at the same time we have what we have. Um, so there's something I wanted to address here that Gene Fortin talks about. Please let us know if there's anything coming out for tool platform. I love both of them, but they're so far away from the box kit. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I feel like people feel like they need to have the latest and greatest in order to be fast. I feel like the cars can be super far away from the box kit, but any of these cars can be super far away from box kit. So what I mean by that is, um, I have a 22 5.0 on an aluminum chassis, bone stock. Basically, I have like a Vision C block, so I can run. So I don't have to grind my arms. Is the only reason why I have one is so I don't have to grind it down and make something and take more time to make something. So it helps me do that. I don't have a lot of option parts on my two wheel, and I have the mod front end, which is all stocks parts. But I know what Gene's talking about when he feels like the car's so far from the base kit, but it's only because people believe that they need to feel that they have to have these parts in order to perform. You can still be very fast. You can still win club races. Dakotah can still win a lot of races at the highest level with a stock car. He's actually basically running a stock car. The only difference really with his carpet car, he has a longer chassis for both dirt and carpet that we've been prototyping and testing to make sure that they're the right lengths. But other than that, the cars are basically stock besides like the Vision C blocks that we don't have to grind the arms down and save time. And obviously, when you grind arms down, if you crash hard, they're going to have a high chance of breaking. So this is just kind of adds durability as well. So, but most of the time, his cars are basically bone stock. It's most of the option parts from TLR. There isn't any like crazy things that I think a lot of people are hoping to find on his car. Like we posted
Yeah.
a couple of pictures of his carpet car, and the only thing you can really see is that the car does look a little bit longer in the back. The spacing is a little bit different from stock, but his actual car is very stock. He doesn't run any of the 13 mil shocks. He doesn't run, all these type like crazy parts that people think he has that makes it unique.
Yeah.
But
The modded front end, which I mean is I mean you run different the different axles, but it's I mean you don't have to use the 0 crash blocks. You can use that's just a tuning option 0 versus 5.
yep,
You can do it with the 5's no problem that comes with the car, and it's the same spindle and everything. The spindle arms that we use, the number 4s come with the kit. So really, it's just I mean obviously the drum length is not ideal. That's something that will probably be updated and fixed in the future, but yeah,
yeah,
a little bit of drumming on that, just to move the caster block in for clearance, and then you use the different front axles, and then the fold driver arms, and then kind of up to you on the C block or not. And
yep.
then for carpet, just a different rear sway bar mount, which is pretty straightforward and pretty easy. So nothing. I don't really have anything too crazy in my cars. There's a little bit of tuning. And running the different front end and stuff. But yeah, it's when you actually look at it, it's not too crazy different parts wise.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so I actually did a test when I was at National Carpet Nats last year at Northwest Hobbies. I ran 40 plus mod, a two wheel, to see what I got against some of these 40 plus guys, and got my butt handed to me, but that's okay. Another story. But what I would do was test something out because I was very curious and wanted to see if there was any major difference. So the way region or nationals works out is that you have two qualifiers on Thursday, two qualifiers on Friday. First day set of qualifiers, I went on a stock chassis, stock car, stock everything, modded front end and full wheel arms, but stock chassis length and everything. and went out there, did pretty good. Next day, I thought to myself, oh man, I'm gonna get this longer chassis on. It's gonna be dialed. I'm gonna be so fast, and I'm gonna. These guys are in for some trouble, you know. That's really what I thought. It's like mentally, I'm like, I'm already like winning this race. You know, that's like, I'm already like holding the trophy, drinking the champagne, popping bottles. But I go out there, I put the longer chassis on, I go out there, I qualify. My overall run was better by, a few seconds, mainly because it was easier to drive and more consistent. But my hot lap actually was slower than my standard car, my normal chassis length, normal everything. And it was a tenth slower. So I kind of proved to myself, okay, guess what? I don't really need this blingy stuff. It does make a difference in some scenarios, but ultimately, if my driving is on point, I don't make mistakes. I'm gonna drive well. Sometimes when you have these parts, like a longer chassis, for instance, or bigger shocks, if you overjump the jump, the bigger shocks help. If you don't overjump the jump and you backside stuff, it doesn't matter, right? So like you can kind of give yourself the ability to accept certain flaws and or create certain flaws for yourself, and then have things to try to improve. So like the longer chassis, it potentially could be faster in certain scenarios, but not all scenarios, and not always do you have to have it, especially if your driving isn't at that level where it's flawless, where you can do a 5-minute run with no crashes. If you have 2 to 3 crashes in there, probably be better to try to get more time instead of worrying about those 2 tenths that a longer chassis might be able to get you. Maybe work on the driving and take those 2 crashes out, and then give yourself that 10 seconds of bonus versus 2 seconds, 0.2 seconds a lap. You know what I mean? So I do understand where everybody wants to have the latest and greatest, but there's certain things that you actually don't need, and I think that aren't they're just kind of trendy. You feel like you got to have all this stuff, but you can get by and do very, very well with the stock car in the stock form. I've proved it to myself that I'm actually faster single lap wise on a shorter chassis. Overall length wise, for sure. If you want to spend that money and the extra bucks, and that doesn't affect your bank account, sure, go buy, have fun, enjoy your life, enjoy your RC experience. But you don't feel like you have to have all these hooplas or these gadgets or these trendy parts to feel like you're going to be as fast. You're going to be as fast as you're going to be. Sometimes, like I say, the configuration of the car can unlock some speed, but for most people, for club racers and everyday racers like myself, like working on my driving is going to help more than trying to find some tenths in some setup stuff. Like going to the track and practicing and getting better at racing and getting better at consistency and unlocking that speed through my driving is going to help a lot more than a longer chassis that you bought for $130 or whatever. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. On having all this extra stuff, try to get all the right speed and things. All right, so we're going to close up on this last question here. I think we've kind of got 2 hours into this. I was hoping to keep it just under 2 hours, or a maximum of 2 hours. I think we're just right there. So Andy Krivitz noticed that you run on your setup right now, and your setups have changed in the last couple of months. I've noticed some things that you don't normally run. So and I'm starting to kind of make sense of why those changes are happening and how it's changing on the track too. And so Andy says, hey, your setups are kind of like the opposites of what we normally do. Your front oil is heavier or lighter than your rear oil in your 2-wheel. Like what's up with that? What's up with your 2-wheel oil? He's right, by the way. This isn't the typical. Dakotah normally the typical 2-wheel setup is 5 weight to 2.5 weight thicker in the front, and then 30, 32 in the back. But yet right now you have a setup that you're running that is kind of wacky, a little different, and unconventional oil. So tell us about this setup. How did you get into this setup? And yeah, it doesn't make sense. So make it make sense for us.
yeah. I mean, I like you said, the typical is having it a little bit little bit heavier oil wise in the front. But obviously you want the car to have a good balance. So that's not like a set rule that it has to be for that to be the right direction. So when we went to the modded front end, running that and the four drive your arms and stuff, the car was a little bit lazier than I wanted it to be. Not very reactive in the front end, so made the front end more aggressive. With some, with like the camber links that I have, and some other things. I always run the tower wing. I think that makes the car a little bit more aggressive steering wise, in all conditions, not just low speed. So doing that, and kind of felt like the setup was where it needed to be, but I wanted the car to be a little bit more aggressive. So went down in front oil to get the front to kind of just be a little bit more aggressive, be more active. The car is still, for me, super easy to drive. It's very smooth steering, very linear steering, not crazy aggressive, but it just kind of gives that front end that little bit of sharpness that I was looking for. So yeah, that's why I did that. Obviously, like, there is that idea that the oil does have to be thicker in the front, but it's obviously it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm pretty happy with the car with the lighter oil in the front.
So this is what I'm talking about. So he's not looking for a perfect setup. The setup in if you look on the setup sheets, like, you look at it and be like, the heck is he doing? Got lighter oil in the front and the rear. Like, so that's where he's at. Like, that's where Dakotah's at. He doesn't have these. He's tuning the car for what he needs and what he needs from it. So, like, he's not, okay, we can't do lower front oil because that's not normal. He's tuning exactly for what he needs, and that's it. There's not a convention that he's trying to follow to say, hey, we got to do this because this is how we've always done it. It's like, keep an open mind. Whatever works. You know what I mean? Like, whatever's happening and it's working and you like it, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that you might be on something that's kind of new and exciting. You know what I mean? So, like, at first I was like, I was doing the same thing, Andy. I was like, you have what in your front shocks? Like, and okay, dude, just go through your piston oil setup just for the two wheel right now. It's crazier than I've ever imagined it, two wheel setups to be. Back in the day when I was like 14, racing like around guys racing double X's, they were telling me like red pistons 566 or 556, and like these mix with these oils plus 10 drops of this, and I'm like, holy cow, dude. So like we're kind of at that, we're revisiting that range right now. So let's talk about your shotgun oil pistons and your two wheel.
Yeah, so I did another thing that people are going to think is a little weird, but like you said, I didn't really think about it. I'm running the flat aluminum caps in the front right now and the domed in the back. And the reason I did that is really pretty much the same reason. I think that the domed caps give a little bit more support, which I normally like for landing and just stability. But I wanted the front end to be a little bit more aggressive. So I just put the flat caps on the front, and it was good. So I left that.
I don't think we could find any flat caps. I think those were like done because we had the dome caps. We weren't gonna keep two caps around. Like, pick your choice.
Yeah.
One dome cap, one flat cap for the front. Like, no, like, so we kind of eliminated the flat caps, I believe, and we have dome caps. And now he's like telling me we got dome caps or flat caps in the front.
I don't, like I said, it was just like, oh, I want the front a little more aggressive. It's not like, I prefer the flat caps to the dome caps. I think that I was the one that really fought for the dome caps. I really think that the dome caps are better. It was just, hey, I need my front end to be a little more aggressive, and I don't see any other changes that I want to make, so that's what I do. I just kind of look at it from that standpoint, and I don't let the differentness or whatever it may be really phase me. Just kind of go down the list of things. I want the car to do this. Here's my options, and then I pick what I think is going to be the best option. So yeah, I run the medium thickness pistons now, front and rear. Pretty standard front, 1.6s with a 1.1 front hole. And then the back, a little bit of a different. Usually, for the most part, we're running like a 1.7, 1.8, 1.2 in the back with 32 weight oil, 30 weight oil in the front, and then I always run
a 1.7, 1.8 with a 1.2 on a 2.3 piston, right? With
yeah,
32.
yeah, in the
Okay.
back.
Yeah. With dome caps on the back.
Yep, TLR white low frequency springs. I always run those in the back. That is the spring for a car. I would argue with anyone until I can't talk anymore. That is the spring you have to run in the back of the car. No other spring is
Yeah,
going to
Aaron.
work on dirt. On dirt, that is a spring. I don't even. I mean, I probably do. I have other springs with me just because I have a spring box, but I pretty much like if I was
No.
limited on space, I would take out all the other rear springs when I go to a dirt race.
Yeah, you basically can throw those all away now. I don't think I've ever. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think I could ever get you to run a different spring. Oh wait, we did one time,
Yeah, yeah,
and it actually that one time it actually worked, and you won
yeah,
the Two-Wheel National Championship
yeah.
from
It
that
was
one time.
a very weird spring
We
that,
ran a different spring,
yeah,
and well, I'm like, hey, I tried this. I tried this in practice. I thought it was pretty good. Let's see what you think. And then you go out there like, yeah, feels pretty good. I guess it feels better. And like, I think it feels better. And like, yeah, I think it looks kind of better. But we really didn't know. And then we kind of kept it on throughout the whole weekend, and like, it just ended up doing well.
yeah.
So
And it
only
just
once.
matched the front spring, I think, a little bit better just because they were the same style. But yeah, I pretty much besides that
Never
one time, I always
at
run
one time.
TLR white low frequency in the rear. And in the front, I'm either on white or gray V1 springs.
Yep. There you go. All right, man. So I think that's the load of questions that we have for now. A lot's about the new cars, new projects, new things, and obviously just a lot of interest on the way you drive, the way you approach a race weekend. You're obviously off to a fabulous start. I couldn't imagine a better start to the year for you. I just like and for the team and just kind of kicking off 2023, the world's year here in the US. Every 10 years, it comes back to the US. So I'm excited for this one coming up, and you're kind of peaking at the right times, I think. So, Dakotah, awesome job at Clash,
Thank you.
awesome job at SIC. Thanks everybody for tuning in and sticking with us for the 2 hours, or for those who did. I appreciate it. There's a lot of information to unpack. I'm sure there's times where you can go back and re-listen to some of these conversations that we have about certain subjects that I think are kind of different and unique from what you normally see, or you don't really get this time at the track when like we meet and greet people. People don't really have this ability to kind of sit down and talk
Mm-hmm.
this kind of level about certain subjects with you or me and about racing. So it's kind of nice to be able to sit back, talk,
Yeah,
and
for
discuss
sure.
some of this stuff for sure. Because there's a lot to unpack that we, like I told Dakotah, like we kind of live it. We kind of are in our world, so we don't, and we aren't. And to us, our world is very normal. So like we don't think anything that's kind of like might be cool to some people. It's very normal to us. So we kind of overlook and kind of take things for granted that way. So it's nice to be able to be grounded and hear some of your guys' questions, be able to address them, and kind of reflect on some of the questions that you have, because they kind of are opening a different thing that we don't normally typically think about or discuss at the track, or maybe too long for a text on, because we get text all the time like, hey, what, why do you guys do this, or why do you guys do this, what's the oil piston for this or that, and we get those kind of texts all the time, but we can't, we're not sitting there having these open discussions about pistons or about setups or about driving or about how to approach racing and stuff like that. So this kind of stuff is kind of cool. I think we can hopefully inspire some of you guys to be better racers and us to be better presenters and people in the industry. So Dakotah, thanks again. I appreciate the 2 hours and plus for hanging out and being able to discuss some of your racing. Great job. We'll see you. I'll see you in a couple of days. We got the Indoor National Series kicking off at SDRC at round 1 of the Winter INS. So looking forward to that and hanging out and doing what we do, man. So thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I don't even know. I got like it's like those moments where I don't even know what to do with my hands. I don't know. I don't know what to say to close it up. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this. So
yeah. See you in another 6 months.
See you next year, guys. See you in 2024, y'all. We'll be back. So anyways, keep it positive at the track. Have a great time. Thanks for repping TLR. Thanks for all the questions and joining. Anything we can do, not just TLR brand specific, but anything about RC racing, the excitement of racing, and this hobby. We all love it. We all enjoy it. Let's protect it, make it better. So, see you guys later. See you, Dakotah.
See you.
All right. See you guys.